My name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Museum Open House. This ongoing series features and highlights many of the outstanding museums and other cultural institutions. The main purpose of most programs is to inform viewers about current and upcoming exhibits, various programs, resources, and other opportunities that are available for the general public. Today via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Hollis Machala. Hollis is a very talented painter based in Rehoboth, and she's here today to inform us about her 26-piece Heart of Massachusetts series that documents the state emblems of Massachusetts, like the official flower, the mayflower, the official artist, Norman Rockwell, and the official rock, Roxbury puddingstone, which, as it turns out, is also physically incorporated in all of the paintings of the series. Last month, the set was on view in the State House lobby, and now the paintings are on display at the James Arnold Mansion in New Bedford. During the program, we're finding out why and how this informative and engaging series came about, as well as learn about some of the history and significance of these noteworthy state symbols. Let's start by meeting Hollis and then learning all about her 26-piece Heart of Massachusetts series. Welcome, Hollis. So delighted you're able to be here.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me today.
It's very interesting coming across the series when it was at the State House. Eager to hear more and have you inform viewers. But before we jump right to that, I think it would be of interest just to briefly hear a little bit more about your background, your professional artistic interests, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't so much becoming interested because I've always loved the discovery of painting ever since that first art class that I took years and years and years ago. Yeah, it was an evolution because I learned to really paint with watercolor first. Watercolor became a favorite medium right out of college about 13 years ago when I was working in architectural illustration. And I have, over the past 20 years, been reaching out for learning journeys, as I call them. And I know that in using watercolor, I learned to paint. Uh, and in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I had just decided 3 months prior to the pandemic that I wanted to pursue my art full time and put down roots where I was from. Uh,
Mhm.
I don't believe you can really be who you are without celebrating where you've been, whether it's good or bad. So I was working as a marketer, managing a group of salespeople, trying to promote products that really I wasn't really proud of. And I had a salary and I had health insurance and all that, but it's ultimately not about the money for me. It was about becoming connected to who I was and starting to live it. And I have always had a wonder around materials that surround us. And I had the good fortune of traveling in my teens because my father worked in California. And so I had traveled back and forth across the country. And by doing that, I saw a lot of the US. And particularly, I remember a bus trip to Gettysburg. Um, going to Pennsylvania and seeing this puddingstone monument of the 20th Massachusetts Regiment in Pennsylvania, which is it's a big boulder of puddingstone, which is also called Roxbury conglomerate, and which is the state rock, which I used in my Heart of a May collection. But they had the boulder. What I found interesting about that was that they had taken the boulder from Roxbury all the way to Pennsylvania because these men had played on them on the rocks as children. So it was an homage to them and their childhood. And so instantly I became connected to this group of men because I had played on the pudding stone as a kid, just like them, because I have this pudding stone rock garden outside of my studio. And finding that connection is why I paint what I paint. And so I have, you know, the garden was where the idea for the Heart of MA came about. And it's a really personal because those rocks were dug out of where I work right now. So when we added on to my studio back in the 80s when I was first born. So this is really kind of a personal project for me. I really connected to it. And each painting is an emblem of the state, and it's my first acrylic collection that I've done. And to me, it's very expressive style because I paint mostly with a palette knife. It begins with a palette knife every single time, and it sort of brings out this wild expressiveness in every person and everything that I paint, and I believe that each thing has ultimately, and I hope that shines in the paintings that I'm currently making.
Do you have the same, before we look at some of them in more close-up detail, do you have a similar process for, in this case, each of the emblems that you created, the way you begin maybe sketching and then different steps along the way, or does it vary?
Right. So as I mentioned, I have kind of a first connection to all of these emblems. I've learned about them over the years of growing up in Massachusetts. And when I came up with the idea to do these 26 pieces, I wanted to research them first because I didn't know about them at all in depth, you know. And a lot of the ones like Deborah Sampson, who's the state heroine, you know, I didn't know what she looked like. I, you know, they had sketches of her in pen and ink, but I couldn't tell her features. So I had to do some digging on a lot of them to find out what the subjects looked like, you know, how they interact with other things like the codfish, you know. I you know, they usually go in schools, you know, codfish. So little things like that I had to understand. And then all of the stories that I read about, I then becomes part of the painting itself. So,
Nice,
so
nice.
that's, and
Yeah,
then in the end, it's just a really wild, fast and furious kind of expression of that I learned.
really interesting to hear. And as we're going to see as we take a little tour, it's quite a range of symbols, emblems, from more serious to just somewhat amusing even. Would you share a few words about the ones that we see in front of us now?
Yeah, so the one on the left is the artist of Massachusetts, Rockwell, Norman Rockwell. And so that one, I think a lot of people resonate with the pipe because the pipe has got a big piece of pudding stone as the pipe. So it kind of like jumps out at you like it's a screen, and it's just kind of like reaching out into our space. And that's kind of a surreal experience, I think, for a lot of people. And I had researched his studio and what it looked like. So partially he's in his studio, and some of the trinkets behind him are from his studio. And I had added, you know, this expression of red, white, and blue as kind of an homage to his life's work for
Nice.
American type of imagery. And so that's the reason for that kind of expressive wall on the side, and that he's kind of looking toward it for that one. And then the garter snake is the next one. That was a super fun piece that is really just an expression of being in my garden and kind of the wildness of that. And there's a little bit of symbolism to the snake that I researched that kind of came out in a little bit of a Japanese way, which is kind of interesting. But and then I have the last few are Taj Mahal, which Taj is the state blues artist, and he's got a really cool bandana that is got the rock on it. And I'd always loved blues music. I grew up with it kind of as a kid, odd enough, but yeah, it was pretty cool to do a portrait of him in very bright blue and orange, and kind of an homage to his blues and very world-like music that he likes to do. And then the cookie over there is a chocolate chip cookie. I liked how the chips kind of come out as rocks.
That's great.
And that one's super expressive. I actually tried to research and find the original Toll House cookie recipe. So the research for that was really just finding the recipe, finding and cooking, baking the cookie, and then making the painting from what I created.
Oh, that's fabulous. Fabulous. And the last one, just a quick word before we move on.
So, and the last one is the navy bean, which is the state bean. I chose to do it in its uncooked state, which to me is just a really beautiful like homage. There's some golds in there that kind of bring it into the space in a kind of a romantic way, but it's really a funny piece to have in your home. I think nowadays we still cook beans, but they're really difficult to cook, but all the history behind these, why we make what we make these days as food and as things around us, I think is really interesting.
For sure. Well, we want to hear about as many as we can. So just a couple of words about each, and we'll make our way through the wonderful display we have here. And I think you mentioned Deborah Sampson, and here she is.
Yeah, so that's Deborah. She's kind of a badass for me, if I can say that. She dressed like a man in the Revolutionary War to really, I think she did it to really find who she was. Because I don't think she really, through reading her history, it feels like that to me. And I think she did. She was, it gave her confidence, and it gave her, more of what she wanted to be. But in the end, I know she was really proud of her family as well. So she was a very interesting woman. I loved reading her stories, and I really saw her as kind of a lady liberty in a way. And so this piece changes a lot with the light that's on it. So it really kind of shines in certain light because it's a lot of gold on this piece. And I loved putting in the rock as kind of the buttons on the piece.
Yeah, very creative, very creative. And the next one we see, especially on February 2nd every year.
Yes. So this is Mrs. G, the state groundhog, and just a really super fun piece. for celebrating that. And
Great. And
I would like to go down to meet Mrs. G at some point. I'm trying to schedule in some of the things that I haven't gotten to do, which I hope to actually finish this collection because there's actually 30 more symbols to the state that I haven't painted yet. And I think it's going to require me to actually go to a lot of the physical places that are the symbols. And that takes a little more time too. So.
but it sounds like the way you are so thorough with your research, you'll get around to that and it'll be time well spent for sure. Just because we do want to get as many in the time remaining, just a quick word about these next two and we'll make our way through the collection.
Yeah, so the next one is Schooner Ernestina, which is the state vessel. I had researched, where to go. I do want to visit Schooner Ernestina, which I haven't done yet either, but this painting was really some of it is taken from my ideas of the nautical sense of a ship. And so I have over the years been influenced by a lot of movies of old war movies. And this particular painting, the colors were inspired by um, uh, a movie that is called Master and Commander. And I wanted to make the ship seem like it was still in place, like when the wind stopped in the movie. And so that's where the colors came out for that one. And then the rock is in the hull of the ship.
Yeah, very
Um,
nice, very nice. And
uh,
the last one we're going to get to hear about.
and the last one is the right whale, which is the state marine mammal, and there's puddingstone in the calicites of the whale, which I find really interesting. They're actually an organism that is not hindering but not helping the organism, the whale.
Mhm.
It's The calicites are a fascinating thing that I researched while I was trying to find more information, and I like that about the whale, but it's also there's only about 320 left of the
Yeah.
Atlantic whales, unfortunately. So uh, I think it's a really cool piece. A lot of people resonated with it because of, how rare the animal is, I think.
Yeah, no, they're all fascinating. And to hear you explain both the starting the research and pointing out both some of the historical significance and the artistic considerations you made throughout is wonderful. But for the sake of time, we're going to try to point out one or two more that you'd like on this panel, and we'll keep our tour going, please.
All right. The Make Way for Ducklings, which is right in the center there, the large piece on the right, is the state children's book. And it's near and dear to Boston, I know, because they have a sculpture of the ducklings that they endearingly change the outfit on every season. So I really wanted to celebrate not only the ducklings but the city as well, because it's such a local story that kind of seems real to a lot of people. So uh, that was my homage to the story, which is also kind of a scene in the book on the last few pages there. So and then though the one we haven't talked about is the ladybug, which I had to research, what a ladybug looked like for real, and they said that the two-spotted ladybug in my research was the most common ladybug. So that's the reason for the two dots on that one. I went a little crazy with the colors because I just felt that a ladybug needed some
It's
flair.
great. And I know that was a wonderful project by an elementary school classroom
Yeah.
years ago. And this panel here, as we zoom in a bit, just for the sake of time, just identifying ones we haven't talked about and what emblem they represent, please.
All right. So we do have the cornbread right there in the center. That is the state muffin. Sorry, I said cornbread, but I said it's really the state muffin.
Mhm.
Um, and just a fun piece. The rocks kind of sprinkled all over as kind of like a textural element. Uh,
Nice, nice.
and when you get up close, there's a lot of like drips and drabs on it. And I really like the having the little paper on the modern version of the cornbread
Great, that's great.
corn muffin. And the codfish is one of the on the left there is one of the oldest symbols of the state. 200 years of fishing industry in Massachusetts, and um, it's actually in the House of Representatives. They have a sacred cod sculpture, wooden, hanging in the house, that uh, is important over the history. So I found it really interesting, and this piece has a little bit of stone in the scales of the fish. And then the turkey there, a little further down,
Yeah,
is the state wild game bird. There are two birds, but this is the state wild game bird. The chickadee is above on the side there. And
nice.
I had a lot of fun researching the turkey, and all the parts on the turkey. And that one I think has the most stone of all of them, putting stone, because there's stone in the front and there's stone in the feathers. Um, but I had a lot of fun um, expressing the turkey because I have tons of turkeys that come around now due to I did learn that, back when I was younger, there wasn't a lot of turkeys around where I was from, but they actually brought them back and they made them back into the ecosystem. So now they're flourishing everywhere.
Most definitely, most definitely.
And so that was really interesting part of history that I didn't know, like, but that I realized, that there were all these turkeys, and where are they coming from all of a sudden? Because when I was younger, they weren't in the yard, so
Great. Well, and there's the pudding stone that it plays such a big role in all of your paintings.
yes, this is the puddingstone garden where I collected the rock for the paintings. And it's pretty
Right.
wild garden, but it's my favorite place. So
Nice close-up of the garter snake and Deborah Sampson.
yeah. And here you can see a lot of the rock
Yeah,
on
that's a great
better.
shot. Hmm.
Um,
A nice shot of Taj Mahal.
yeah.
Fabulous, fabulous colors.
Yeah, that was one of the great uh, comments that I got from the James Arnold and from the State House that the colors are vibrant, but they really seem to fit within the spaces as
Yeah,
well. So like brightens up the entire room, and um, that's pretty cool to hear. So, but yeah,
wonderful.
and the
Very,
rock here
very
is
prominent.
the harness for the Boston Terrier, which we didn't get to, but yeah, that's the it's a very old symbol for Boston and for Boston University, the Boston Terrier.
Mhm.
And the Morgan horse is the state horse. Uh,
And there's a great shot of Make Way for Ducklings.
and yeah, a lot of the rock was like physical rock of the island, so that was pretty cool. Plus, the pudding stone is in the actual ducks as well, so they kind of pop
Mm.
as well.
Fabulous.
And yeah, a little shot of the codfish that
Ah,
is.
okay, okay. And we didn't hear about famous Bostonian Ben Franklin.
And then yes, this is my portrait of Ben Franklin. Really an homage to his he's kind of a Renaissance kind of guy, but he's the state inventor. And I had put rock behind him in the light and on his buttons, and I really did kind of a flash behind him as an homage to his invention of the lightning rod, and his thoughts on ideas and inventing and kind of that flowing through him. So
Oh,
uh,
so many things. I think fire department, I think library, I mean, go on, incredible individual. I know here's a great shot of you from your studio. In the couple of minutes we have left, one question, what do you hope others can get out of and appreciate from this set, the series that you've assembled so wonderfully?
yeah, I mean, I hope that it can kind of remind you of history, but also give you a sense of some of the things that you might hold dear. Um, that's what I hope to kind of instill in some of my current work, is to share the story behind our lives. And I it's very personal to me. It's like a celebration of where I'm from, but I hope that that resonates with the people of Massachusetts too. So
Oh, most definitely. Well, I'm so glad you made the time to share your work with us today. Look forward to following the next set in the series that you'll be working on, and perhaps come back and share those paintings on another occasion. But continued success with that and all other future endeavors.
thank you. Yeah.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us, and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.